Hello and welcome back. So in this one, this is episode 4, by the way, I believe. In this one, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go over the attractor mode and how the attractor mode works. And if I don't take too long, I'm going to go over the wave manager and how the wave manager works and everything like that. So to start off with, yeah, I mean, obviously you can see right now the attractor mode is working. It resets when he dies, and it displays the high scores, and the high scores do change. Unfortunately, I think in one of the videos I did score a high score, but I ended up deleting the video, so you can see the differences between the high scores when they change. So I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into the attractor mode. So the attractor mode is accomplished using a strategy pattern. And the strategy pattern is used in the ship. And inside the ship, where's the ship? Oh, there it is. Okay, so inside the ship, there's ship controllers, and there's the attractor mode, and there's the player controller. There's also the menu controller that just decides, if you're going to move forward to the next. It just basically, starts the player mode. I originally had put it in the attractor mode, but every time the ship dies, it kills its controller. So I didn't want to do that because then that would cause some big issues when the ship died in attractor mode. So inside of attractor mode, same thing as the spider. He has a minute of max, blah 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 blah. Same update, the rate position, and blaster generic moves. So he basically moves in a generic direction based on the direction that he is currently going in. So these are all the directions he can go in, and it basically changes direction randomly, and it rebakes the vector. It has an alarm for when to shoot, because I put it in the update originally, and it was just like a machine gun, man. It was crazy. So I put it in alarm instead, and then it just kind of keeps calling itself every quarter of a second. It's like, shoot, 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 and it'll only shoot if it is not shooting. So it's kind of like the same thing, This is the strategy pattern, and that's how that works. So yeah, same thing for the player controller. Just to go over that again, it's the other half of the strategy pattern, and this is triggered inside the ship when it's initialized. If it's true or false, depending on what it does, then it yeah. So let's see. Let's go into the HUD, because that's where a lot of the attractor stuff is. So there's a high score menu, and the high score menu, it's created, it initializes, and it writes the high score. And what this does is okay. So now this is later on in my programming, like, I don't know, my programming journey, and it's my personal opinion that this is cleaner than anything I've done before. Obviously, there's these magic numbers, but I mean, I could obviously put these in the header and be like, hey, this is where I want to start my high scores, and this is where I want this is the alignment I want all my regular scores to be. I could do that, but I was kind of throwing it together and just, checking it out and seeing what it looked like. But I'm pretty proud of, this. And Keenan says that it's a better idea to do, stuff like this rather than to do an iteration, because then you're doing an assignment in a conditional rather than in here you're just going boom, 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 boom type thing. So that's what I ended up going with. And then this is the right high score augmented. So the right high score augmented, it takes a buffer and it checks to see if the buffer is lower than a certain amount, and it'll just keep adding zeros so that it has that nice alignment that you see when it boots up. It has that nice alignment right there. And then it'll just it'll put that onto the high score glyph list. This is exactly the same system that you did for where is this? Like the glyphs and the font. It's pretty much the same system that's used for that. It's just used for this instead. and when it's done, it clears the list, and then every time it draws, it goes through the list, and it draws. So the glyphs are, the glyphs have positions, and let me see where this is. Yeah, the glyphs have positions, and then it increments the position by the cell width. Or the same thing for this too. So that's how it goes down a row. It goes down a row by the cell width. Um, so let's see. So that's how that works. And then the score is a separate system. Um, this is the score system. It's also a singleton as well. And yeah, oh yeah, we've already been in here, but it also reads the high scores from the file. I did a binary read and a binary write instead because you don't want Joe Blow messing with the high scores and changing them and being like, hey, look, I'm the best person in the world. So I decided instead to do the binary, and it just kind of kerplunks it all at once. It just goes here, just throw this all in there, and when it grabs it, it just kind of rips it out all at once too. It rips it out 8 times. This writes it the amount of times that's in the high scores, and what it does when it loads it is it stores it in a buffer, and then the buffer pushes it into the high scores list. It starts off by clearing it. And then the buffer is actually what is given to, it's what's passed to the high score menu to be written. So when it writes, let's see if I can find this. I know it does this because I wrote it, but it's going to be hard to find it because I have so much code that I've been doing. Where is this? Oh God, you're gonna be sitting here in the silence while I try to find this. Well, basically, it passes it. Here it is, the buffer right here. I'm such a smart guy. And then yeah, so he grabs the high scores, and it returns the buffer, and the buffer is exactly what I was telling you earlier. It's this guy right here, so you can see because it's highlighted. It's being returned, and it passes the buffer, and the buffer is what gets handed to it. So that's what it saves it in, and then it writes it from there. And then when it saves the high score, it goes ahead and where is it at? Here it is. It goes through the list and it checks to see if any of the player's score is greater than, and if it is, then it just puts it right in front, and it pops the one that's off the bat because you can't have that many high scores, breaks out of this iterator, and then it writes the high scores to the list, so that or not to the list, I'm sorry, to the file, so it can get ready to rip it out again. And then this is a little handy thing, just in case there's some corruption. You can clear the high scores, set them all to 0, and start over again. But I just saw something. Oh yeah, I wanted to explain this. So, this was kind of like a little bit of a substitute for a strategy system or a strategy pattern, because I had gotten kind of far into everything, and I would kind of have to go back and redo a lot of things. And again, time crunch. So I did a set current player. So instead, it sets the current player to either player 1. And then it gives a life reward card. I'll explain that in a minute. Or it does a pseudo player, which is just a fake player. It doesn't really even matter. And this will never get displayed, so we'll never have to worry about it. And then this just resets the score for when it goes from attractor mode or so on. So okay, this is how it tests to see if you win extra lives. The problem is I was very far along, and I realized that I had forgotten to put in the extra lives system. And so I started working on an extra lives system that I had thought of using various strategy patterns, because if we bring up Wikipedia, which I'm not going to do right now, but if we bring up Wikipedia, it says every 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, and 20,000 score that's reached, and I believe after 20,000 that's the cutoff. I believe that you can't get any extra lives after that. That's what it appeared to be to me, anyways. So I was going to do strategy patterns where it would check, and that would be the cutoff, and then it would replace that check with another check, and then that would be the cutoff, and it would automatically change it from 12 to 15 to 20,000. But basically, it would have taken more time for me to flesh it out and make it really, really good because I was having a lot of include issues. Yay, include issues. But so I just threw this together, and this just checks to see if it reaches a certain point, and then it just sets the bar another 10,000. It's not ideal, but it kind of simulates and gets the point across, and it adds the lives that it's supposed to. Had I had more time, I would have loved to make a better system for that, but again, I just ran out of time. So yeah, that's what the current player does. Current player just points to the player score that's going. Yeah, so that's the high score system. Let's see what else I'm supposed to do. Oh yeah, the lives manager. So the lives manager this handles the lives, and it's very similar to. It's also a singleton. It's very similar to. It's very similar to the way that it writes the high score, but instead this time I created glyphs that mimic a life, and it just basically is a spaceship, and it has a position, and it just basically draws itself when it's called a draw. So this just does the same thing. It pushes back a lives glyph with a position, increments the position by 16, and then goes through the whole thing again. And that's how it initializes, and it does the same thing for update. When it updates, it adds the life, and then it initializes. So I can pass this -1 or +1, so it kind of can be reused for both things. And then it'll initialize, which means it'll rebuild this list. And then for draw, all it does is just go through the list. It doesn't rebuild the list each time. It just goes through the list that's already there, and it draws it. And then when the lives manager is destroyed, it just clears out the list so that it's not there anymore. So the flyweight, I didn't forget about it. It's the same thing that you used. I'm actually very interested in this, and I would very much like to dig into this over break. There's actually a lot of stuff I would love to dig into over break, and there's a lot of programs I've already kind of lined up that I want to make myself. So yeah, this is I can't remember if I showed you the text controller yet, but this is the text controller. So this is in charge of the high score and the regular score. So basically, it just updates the score, and it adds this to align the score. It also does the same thing for the high score, and then when you go through draw, it just iterates through the lists and just orders those things to draw, which is the same thing as where is this? As you have set up here. This is just basically exactly what you gave us. I realize now though that I can use one list and just put everything on the same list. Actually, maybe I couldn't. Very interesting to think about. I'm gonna meditate on that. But yeah, so this will actually fix something. So what did I do? Oh God, I hate this. Get out of here. No, oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, this is so it'll basically load the high score from the score system. It'll tell it to load the high score, and it'll grab the high score from there. Where is it? Update high score right here. It'll load it from the score system. It'll say get high score. It'll load the high score in here, and then it'll just concatenate this string, and then it'll add it to the list, and when it comes time to draw it, it'll draw it. So it seems like that's about it for the score system. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this video. It's getting late at night, so trying to wrap this up.